This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about the complete Mr. Arkadin from 1955, directed by Orson Welles. Really, we're just talking about a Mr. Arkadin. Just one.
What do you mean by just one?
Well, RJ, there's a box set that Criterion put out that's got a few different cuts of this movie, this Orson Welles directed film, Mr. Arkadin, also sometimes known as The Confidential Report, sometimes known as Mr. Arkadin. And then there's the Corinth version, which is the one that we watched, which I believe the film critic and scholar of this film, Jonathan Rosenbaum, said is the most satisfying version that exists.
Are they edited differently or just
there's subtle
deleted scenes?
There's Well, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that this movie's history.
Okay.
But that all being said, tagline for this film, RJ.
Mm-hmm.
Discovering the past can be murder.
Isn't that the tagline for Tenet?
Claiming that he doesn't know his own past, a rich man enlists an ex-con with an odd bit of detective work. Gregory Arkadin says he can't remember anything before the late 1920s, and convict Guy Van Straten is happy to take the job of exploring his new acquaintance's life story. Guy's research turns up stunning details about his employer's past, and as his work seems linked to untimely deaths, the mystery surrounding Mr. Arkadin deepens.
Does it?
Nah.
So I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So, what did you know of or think of Mr. Arkadin before watching it this week?
I know it's on Chris Nolan's top 10 faves.
So I didn't know that, but I wondered that because I just watched Tenet this week for the very first time, and there are some serious, weird little I did not plan this. This was haphazard, but there's just these little connections.
See, I would have never placed that either unless you had watched Tenet this week, because the only reason I'm thinking about Tenet is because you talked about it in the preamble. Or otherwise, I would have still said Chris Nolan loves it, but I would have never made the connection to Tenet, because it is a movie that you could see Chris Nolan be like, oh yeah, that's the movie I want to make right there.
Yeah,
but licking his teeth a little bit,
we have our arms dealer.
We have that,
For
and then
one.
that, and then kind of fish out of water spy guy, I think, is what happens a lot, because that's what happens in Tenet too. It's not fish out of water, but spy guy who's in a situation that's new to him, because that's a common Chris Nolan thing. And then people's pasts. I know that sounds super vague and general, but that is a thing that he does a lot.
I really wish when I was watching Tenet, I wish I had taken actual notes, because I wasn't thinking about this at all. But
now that we're here,
watching it, I was like, "Huh, this is vaguely familiar." And certain setups, shots are kind of like, "Oh yeah, what a weird thing." And I don't know if many people mention that when talking about Tenet. But I don't know how many people throw on Mr. Arkadin.
No one. But there's even other stuff too. There's the one scene where it's zoomed in on Orson Welles and the camera's kind of moving around him when they're on the boat. And I was like, this feels very Chris Nolan-y. I was like, this seems like the rotating hallway in Inception to me for some reason. I don't know why. That was one thing I got, because the only thing I knew about this was that Chris Nolan loves this movie, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'll throw it on my list, man, right after The Big Hit, because apparently that's the one he likes the most out of the Criterions. And
the Big Hit,
I think, or just The Hit.
Yeah, The Hit.
Is The Big Hit the Mark Wahlberg one?
Lou Diamond Phillips.
That could be one of his favorite movies. I don't know.
Yeah, from the Criterion Collection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone's got a favorite John Leguizamo film, am I right?
Yeah.
Anyways, that was all I knew about it. But then I do gotta say,
I saw that movie in theater because Bobby at the store he closed the store in the middle of the afternoon to go see a matinee of it. Back in the old days.
Was it worth it?
Back in 1998. Oh, what do you think? It was amazing, RJ.
Yep.
Everyone still talks about the big hit.
Hey, we're talking about it right now.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
We're talking about it right now, baby.
Yeah.
The big hit. Okay.
Well, like the big hit, Mr. Arkadin also features Orson Welles like masturbating a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Working his hands. So anyway.
Just a little.
So, there's a history to this Arkadin business and why it has a complete box set and why this movie kind of exists as one of Orson Welles' greatest failures, an artistic failure, because he didn't get to actually finish it. It got taken away from him, his baby. Or a movie he made got taken away from him. Because in some ways, Orson Welles was kind of like the original Guillermo del Toro. A man larger than life. He just seems to have all these plague productions.
Oh, and it's everyone else. It's always everyone else's fault. And it's like,
I think GDT's luck has kind of turned around a little bit. He got those Oscars, and then he made a movie that went head to head with Spider-Man that made $1 billion, and Nightmare Alley will find itself streaming in no time.
Yeah. But it's everyone else's fault. It's like I had a cousin who switched schools like 6 times, and their excuse was always, "Oh, the teachers are bullying me." And it's like, maybe you're the problem. You know what I mean, Jarrett?
Are they Harley Quinn fans too?
I don't think she was at the time, but she probably is now.
Okay.
But anyway, I just update the complete Mr. Arkadin is number 9 on Chris Nolan's list.
There you
so
go.
We'll get through the rest of this list by the end of the episode. But that was all I know. And the other thing is, I'm glad that you're saying Arkadin, because I don't like
Arkadin.
I don't like how they pronounce it. And I even wrote it down because I was like, that doesn't seem right, Miss Arkadin. Then he says,
there's some very 1955 pronunciations in this movie. Too.
I wrote down another one because I was like, something's off here. Amnesia. They put amnesia.
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 Well, that's also Robert Arden's character, who we'll get to him. We'll get to Bob Arden.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Arkadin, the character is. Because everyone's gonna be it's Arkadin. Well, I'm gonna say Arkadin.
I'm gonna say Arkadin. You say Arkadin.
I'll try. But so he's actually, I guess, vaguely based on a actual arms dealer that died in 1936, Basil Zaharoff. He was a Greek arms dealer and industrialist. One of the richest men in the world during his lifetime, Zaharoff was described as both a quote merchant of death and quote mystery man of Europe. His success was forged through his cunning, often aggressive and sharp business tactics. These included the sales of arms to opposing sides in conflicts, sometimes delivering fake or faulty machinery, and skillfully using the press to attack business rivals.
Is that what it was about?
Yep. He likely served as a primary inspiration for Ian Fleming's fictional James Bond villain, Ernst Stavro Blofeld. You know about this? You hear about this?
Blofeld from Spectre? The James Bond film?
Yeah. Well,
is that a spoiler? I've never seen that movie.
I don't know. Well, hopefully not. I haven't seen that movie
Blofeld
either.
is in there.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So, Arkadin. The story was based on a radio series called The Lives of Harry Lime, which is based on the Orson Welles character from The Third Man, as we've previously discussed. From Wikipedia, the main inspiration came from the episode Man of Mystery, but elements may have been lifted, which is code for stolen, from an episode of the radio show Ellery Queen, The Case of the Number 31, chiefly the similar-sounding name George Arcaris, the mysterious birthplace, the French Riviera property, and the Spanish castle. All a coincidence, I'm sure.
What's the Spanish castle?
There's the castle in Spain in the movie that we watched where they meet for the first time.
The movie went to Spain?
Yep. Remember, there's like the flagellants?
Oh, I know all about the flatulence.
Yes.
Yeah, I know all about the flatulence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spain. I'm not looking this up.
At the Goya, the Goya masquerade.
Oh, I remember Goya.
Yeah, you remember.
It's like a Dagus. You know Dagus?
I've heard all about him.
Yeah.
Similar.
So
why is there a complete Mr. Arkadin. So there are several different versions of the story. So I guess Orson Welles might have missed an editing deadline, and producer Louis Dolovitt took the film and made several edits of the film, and none director approved. In 1982, Welles described Arkadin as the biggest disaster of his life, of his entire life, because of his loss of creative control.
What about that champagne commercial?
I mean, that was a success. That was a win in my book.
I mean, I agree.
That's a W.
That's the most like genuine assertion of control. He did take control of film. I'll walk that back.
I wonder if the director thought of that when he was making it.
He had no control over that. Orson did.
Damn it, Orson.
He did.
So Countess Paolo de Gerolfalco, who played Arkadin's daughter under the stage name Paula Mori, would later marry Welles, becoming wife number 3.
How many wives did he have all time?
You'll have to look it up for me. Check Canadian Google for me.
Canadian Google, Orson Welles' wives?
Yeah. How many? So, anyway, I got sidetracked there. So, since Orson Welles did not own the film rights to Harry Lyon, those were owned by Harry Towers, who's also the producer of Jess Franco movies.
Oh, you think it's a coincidence?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's it is a coincidence, but Jess Franco was doing some second assistant camera work for Orson Welles and regarded him as one of his biggest influences.
Ooh.
And a man from Spain, RJ, a man from Spain.
Just like Orson Welles' resting place, Ronda, Spain, and his 3 spouses, Virginia Nicholson, Rita Hayworth, and Paolo Mori.
Del Gerolfalco.
But then he also has partners, Dolores Del Rio and Oja Kodar.
Oh yeah,
so I don't know the difference.
Remember Oja from F for Fake?
Yeah, I remember Oja. So 3 wives and 2 partners.
There you go. Doing it right.
And he's buried in Spain.
There you go. He loves Spain, as
Buried
do we all. So instead of Harry Lime, RJ, we get Guy Van Stratton.
He sounds like a Simpsons character.
Do
you know what I mean?
Very fake sounding.
Yeah.
So the movie started off as a screenplay called Masquerade, which did not use a flashback structure.
No,
it would have just played. It was played straight originally, and there are 7 different cuts. There is a Spanish language version called Mr. Arkadin, which is 93 minutes long. There is a second longer version of Mr. Arkadin, which Jonathan Rosenbaum, who wrote a book about this film, didn't even know existed until years later, because I don't know, you just don't know. There's no internet. There's no Google internet.
There's no Canadian Google?
Nope. Not even in Canada yet.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So there's Confidential Report, which is the version that was released in the UK, the European version, and apparently features some Guy Van Stratton voiceover narration, which just reminds me of Blade Runner in its original version.
In its original form?
Yeah.
You liked that one, though, didn't you?
No. No.
I'm going to tell people you did.
Yeah, you're going to stick to that story?
Alternative news.
And then there's the Corinth version, which is what we watched, named after Corinth Films, the initial U.S. distributor of the film. And I guess until 2006, it was believed to be the best, closest version to Welles's vision, as I make the quotation marks.
I see.
So this was put together by that distributor at one point, got shelved. Old Peter Bogdanovich shows up. He finds out about it, and he's like, "What? I'm the biggest Orson Welles fanboy there is." As he adjusts his ascot, and he gets it, and he obtains it and releases it in the U.S. in '62, and that's when the world gets to see Mr. Arkadin.
And do you think that they liked what they saw, Jarrett?
Well, who knows? Probably. And then there was a public domain version that is 95 minutes long, that has no flashback structure, and apparently it's just like a big, jumbly edited mess that doesn't make any sense. Indeed.
So that's the one I watched, I think.
And then there's also, RJ, this Criterion 2006 edit that neither of us watched because I tried watching it and I was like, what the fuck is
that
this?
the complete one?
This is the most complete version, but this is the story behind it, and I will just read this directly from. Whilst no version of the film can claim to be definitive, as Welles has never finished editing the film, this version is likely the closest to Welles' original vision, though the creators of this restored version expressed their doubts as to the correctness of altering another artist's work. It was compiled in 2006 by Stefan Drossler of the Munich Film Museum and Claude Berthimes of the Cinématique Municipale de Luxembourg, with both Peter Bogdanovich and Jonathan Rosenbaum giving technical assistance. It uses all available English-language footage and attempts to follow Welles' structure and editing style as closely as possible, also incorporates his comments over the years on where the other editions of the film went wrong. However, it remains an approximation. For instance, Welles remarked that his version of the film began with a woman's body, Millie, on a beach, including a close-up that makes her identity apparent. Whilst the Criterion edit restores the film opening on a woman's body on the beach, only a long shot exists taken from the Corinth version, in which it is unclear whose body it is. No close-up of Millie could be used, as the footage no longer exists.
Okay.
That's that.
That's why they did that?
Yeah. They're trying to make it close to what Welles had done it. So, like, the bar for this is because there's the movie Touch of Evil that got that Walter Murch had the 57-page notes that Orson Welles sent describing what his version of the opening should be. Back when that studio took that movie away from him and screwed it up. And so Walter Murch went in and he recreated it, and it's really well done and is very clear and understandable.
Who's Walter Murch?
Famous film editor and sound editor. He has an entire book actually that Canadian author Michael Adonchi interviewed him for, called The Conversations.
Real Canadian author, or
real Canadian author?
Okay,
real man.
Yep, makes sense.
Not fake.
Well, I have to check, Jared. I gotta check sometimes the legitimacy.
Oh, sorry. I guess I should say he is a Sri Lankan-born Canadian poet.
Aren't we all, though?
At heart.
At heart, you know what I mean?
Okay. So that all being said, I started watching like maybe the first 20 minutes of the Criterion edit, and I was like, "What the fuck am I watching?" There's something off about it.
Something's amiss here.
Something's amiss here. So I went, okay, I got to start over again. So I'm going to watch, because I noticed on Letterboxd, everyone seems to be watching the Corinth version.
And who is Corinth?
That's the studio that the Corinth Films was the distributor.
Did you mention that already?
I did.
Okay, I listen.
3 minutes ago. It's a long time.
I'm listening. I know what Corinth means. I always thought you meant like
the Corinthians.
Yeah, Corinthians 2. You know about Corinthians 2, right?
Everyone does. It's huge.
I should check that out. Make sure it's not anything problematic. Yeah.
So, let's lay out this movie, RJ, while you're looking up Corinthians.
I got it if you want me to read it to you.
No, I don't.
It's about God's wisdom revealed by the Spirit.
Damn. So the movie opens up with a newsman reportage about an empty plane and it crashing and its impact on the world. This is all narrated by Orson Welles' voice. And that this film will tell the true story of what actually happened. Dun, dun, dun. And then Mr. Arkadin pops up on the screen. There's actually also the quote at the very, very beginning of the movie about a king offering to give a man whatever he wanted. And then it's like, but the man wisely responded, "You can give me anything but your secrets."
Is that what The Green Knight is about?
That's exactly.
Is it?
No.
Hey, do you want to hear this line from Corinthians 2? "For I resolved to know nothing," is what he says.
Wow.
"When I came to you, I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom, as I proclaimed to you. For I resolved to know nothing." I paraphrase that a little bit. There's a lot more to it.
That sounds really great. I can definitely see why people are Christians.
Well, Corinthians, to say the least.
So the movie opens up with a jaunty opening credits, which is not in the complete version. We get a little scroll of all the actors you're going to see with their names, and you're like, whoa, this is going to be fun.
I mean, is that what you said when you saw their names? You said, "Oh, fun,
fun."
Ooh,
It's Christmas Day in a European ruin.
Yeah. It's a Christmas film.
They're snowed over wagons that kind of look like gun batteries, like cannon barrels or whatever. But they're cold weapons, RJ. It looks like, which one could say during a Cold War.
How cold?
Very chilly.
Real chilly?
Note here, dig that cinematography.
Which part? Because there's a couple.
Like, throughout this whole movie. Like, that's kind of what this has got going on for it. Particularly low angles. Everyone is shot from below. Yes. And so they always look mountainous.
Is that where Tom Cruise got it from, do you think?
That's where they learned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Mr. Arkadin. Yeah, I have the note here. Film noir pornography. Because if you like dark corridors, you like shot like strange angles, aiming down, and people walking up steps. People start walking away from a door frame, and then the camera like disappears back down the corridor as you see a person walking up the stairs. You like that kind of stuff? In the Criterion cut, these shots go for a lot longer, like way too long, and it's like they made some good decisions here to cut these things.
I follow.
It goes back and forth. There's like from the first 20 minutes I watched of the two versions, I could see that was good. This is bad. This was a necessary cut. This didn't need to happen. This has a much colder tone. Like the Criterion cut definitely feels a lot colder, but it just felt so disjointed and jarring.
I see.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, do you think like with his Orson Welles' like cinematography and all that, do you think there's ever been anyone who's had more of an influence on Microsoft PowerPoint than Orson Welles? Like, you know, like the fade outs and like the washes and the way that things like move around. It's all because of him, isn't it?
All because of him.
Do you know what I mean?
They owe him some money. We'll have to go find his grave and bury some with him.
Well, I mean, PowerPoint should do what's right. That's what I'm saying. But okay, so
it's a little bit
wonky.
Robert Arden is Guy Van Straten. Yep. He's looking for this guy named Jacob Zook, who's living in he seems like half dead, and he's hanging out in this like bombed out space, and there's like a swastika thing hanging into the building that he's like this in. It seems like it'd be very cold. Living in this like bombed out old building.
I mean, it doesn't seem super nice.
Because we're not just in a European ruin. We're in Germany.
In Zurich? No, Zurich's in Switzerland.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he's looking for this guy, this Jacob Zook. I need you because you're going to be the only person that can make sure that I keep living because you're in danger too. And the Zook says like, what do I care? But boy, oh boy, RJ, this dubbing.
There's a little dubbing.
Some heavy dubbing. So this was obviously, it's one of those like how there's a Spanish Dracula and there's an English Dracula. I think there was a little bit of that going on between these apparently two versions of the movie. And I'm not sure if that just means because it's like they took the exact same movie and dubbed over two tracks, or they were shooting things twice. I didn't really read that. I mean, but there is dubbing, like Italian style dubbing, and it's not good.
Italian style. Is that anything like Divorce?
No. None of the cast were killed making this movie, as far as I'm aware.
Well, that you know of.
So, yeah, we're going to be stuck with this Robert Arden guy, who it's got to be one of like the most like one of the worst performances of any movie we've watched. Up at this point.
He's pretty fucking bad.
He is. Like I don't know how people are missing this and not talking about it more, but like it's bad.
He's bad, and it's like I said, like immediately I had a problem with how he pronounced stuff, and then I was like, is this just one of those weird things that I have? Because I know I have a lot of those weird things, but about half an hour in, I was like, no, this guy's not good. I was like, I see what's going on here.
Yeah, he's a real ham sandwich.
Oh yeah.
Doing that. Hey,
Oh,
I'm an American tough.
he says, Adrian.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about Mac? Yeah, I don't know. What? So this put me off pretty hard, right, to kick things off. So at this point, now we get flashbacks as the Guy Van Stratten character is going to explain to Jacob Zook what brought him here, as he's trying to urgently get him away from this room before Mr. Arkadin shows up.
And why do you think that is, though, Jarrett?
Well, we're going to find out. Stratton, he was a boat boy smuggler in Naples, and while him and his girl Millie, they're just hanging out at the docks one night, they see a peg leg guy running away, and then behind him they find another guy stumbling about, but he's been stabbed in the back. And this guy takes his sweet time to die. My God. So there's a shootout. The police kill peg leg. And this guy's been stabbed in the back. Millie and Guy, they're hanging over this man. He's like, "Oh, thank you so much for your kindness. I will give you a gift, but I don't want to die surrounded by police. These are horrible people. I want to give you a promise." And this scene goes on for probably 2 minutes of this. It felt like this going back and forth, and you're like, just spit it out. Like I get this is stylized, but this
it's so long.
Yeah, it's distracting how you're like, what? Come on, why? What's the hold up here?
So long, Jarrett, and it's also like I don't have lots of time left.
But let me tell you
about the best gift I can give you.
His gift, I tell you, you guys were so kind to me. It was just like it's like Wally in that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, the Fred Armisen character.
It is. It is. He's so kind. Let me give you a gift. It's something for you.
There's a number on the permit you'll have to give. It's G19. He's like, just text it to me.
Just text it.
Just listen. Oh, I just realized when you give it the paper, you're going to have to use the one. It's temporary for T, so it'll actually be T19. But I'm dying. I've been stabbed in the back. You see, I have to get this out.
He said, "But listen, I got something I gotta say. Something I gotta say, Jarrett." Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what that is.
Yeah. So, of course, Guy gets busted by the cops for smuggling cigarettes, and Millie is able to hang out by this dying man, Bracco, as he says, gives two names that'll make you millionaires: Gregor, Arkadin, and this other name you don't find out for a little while, and it's Sophie.
Sophie's Choice.
Kinda. But not, but kinda.
Okay.
So Guy gets busted, Guy gets out of jail, and he starts chasing down some leads to get to this Arkadin guy. But Millie has already been working ahead of him, and they're sort of like in a relationship, but it seems one of convenience. They don't really seem to be really into one another that much.
They're just kind of like passing time.
Yeah,
they're just like, you're like, this is fine for now, I guess.
And so you find out Arkadin's got a yacht, and he's in Spain. So they have this setup where they also find out that this Arkadin guy, he's got a daughter named Raina, and maybe the way to her father is through her, because Robert Arden is so charming, even though, as my note is, fuck, is he an obnoxious lout.
Yeah, he's incredibly obnoxious, but they play him off as super suave. Hey, they're like, look how cool this guy is. Yeah. Well, is everyone else seeing this?
Yeah, it's not convincing. So no. he kind of stakes her out, follows her to this club where she's hanging out with this English lord. He gets a phone call to get that guy away from the table. He's like, "Hey, let's dance, honey." She's like, "Well, I'm with somebody else." He's like, "Well, he's gonna be busy for 15 minutes." He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" It's like, "Well, I made that phone call so I could get that dance from you." She's like, "Oh."
Yeah, she really laughs it up, but this is the first incident of what I would call working through the no, and I think that this guy does it a lot in this movie. Well, he does it 3-4 times.
I don't blame these women.
You don't blame him for falling victim to how charming he is?
Or them saying no. No.
Yeah, I agree. They're like, no, no. And he's like, hey, baby. He's like, listen, I set this up real good and nice. You're going to have a good time and you're going to like it.
Uh,
You
so
go, okay.
so soon enough, they're going up to the castle. They're going to
Sure they are.
they're going to the Spanish castle, and on the way you get to see some Spanish flagellants, penitents, aka clansmen.
The penitent man?
Yeah, the penitent men.
Yep.
We get some of those low angles
Yes. Yes, we do.
because it's all about like kind of ease making their way to the castle, but then there's like, well, he's got to like put some work in to like really convince Raina that he's worth it. So of course he's kind of ditched Millie, who's like kind of they're keeping separate because they're like, oh, we're working together, but like because her only leverage is she knows what the other name is, but keeps saying I can't remember what it is, so he doesn't have both pieces and doesn't have to just get rid of her. She's like, well, I know what you like about her because she's got nothing that I don't got, but she does have money. So that's the only thing that's keeping us together, and I need I want mine too. Otherwise, you're just gonna like leave me out in the cold. So that's kind of her leverage.
Do you think it would work?
Wow, for a time, I suppose it works at this point. So guys macking on Reina, and there's this whole thing of like them like being in love of running around this like Spanish town, and there's all these guys spying. On her, like it's just like guys just like leaning over from behind trees with binoculars, and another person because they're all following because her father, the ogre, he's very possessive of his daughter.
Yeah, that's another plot point that I thought was a little bit
We'll wonder about
a
this,
little
won't we?
strange. Well, there's a line that's pretty plain
Mm-hmm.
about it later on.
Yeah.
But do you want me to wait until then?
Well,
or
you
just-
go right ahead.
There's that line where someone says it's like, well, his interest in his daughter was always in question, or it was like he had like a fondness for his daughter that we never quite understood. It's something like that, and you're like, what are you talking about? So it seems pretty plain. It's like he's in love with his daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he won't act on it. But he doesn't want.
No,
any...
he just likes to keep track of her.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
So, Guy gets invited up to this sweet masquerade ball where everybody's wearing like paper mache Goya art painting masks of like, donkeys and hideous witches and ghosts and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. The British guy that Raina was with before, he's there. He seems to be pretty clueless that like, hey, this guy is still hanging around. He's like, what's all with these Frankensteins?
How did you interpret that scene? As it was, or did
As
you
it was.
find a deeper meaning to that?
I think it was just flavor. I mean, it's Spain, people, Goya, Spanish, and he's going with it. It's. I mean, it's not expressionistic, but it feels like there's a lot of close-ups of people's faces, hideous figures. It's very noir-y and visual, and it feels like German expressionism. It just feels like very like that's all this movie's got going for it. Really, is like some of the visual stuff. Those screenshots where people are like looking through their like in weird angles. Orson Welles' ridiculous hairpiece. You can just see like the glue right where the hairline is. You're just like, what is this? It's like, I mean, whatever. It's not the biggest budget in the world probably. But enough of a budget. They're spending it on travel and going to these locations.
Yeah, they're going to a lot of locations.
They're going on vacation.
I thought his makeup was great. I didn't even know there was makeup.
I think I sent you the one, and you just see like his hairline is hilarious.
I mean, it's
this is like it's right there with like some of the worst bald caps we've seen in some of the samurai movies we've watched. Where you're like, well, that's a bald cap.
Yeah, but it's not as honestly, it's not as bad as people I've encountered in real life. Do you know what I mean?
With bad thick hair in real life.
Yeah.
Is that
it's better than that.
Okay.
I've seen some whoppers, Jarrett.
And thus enters Mr. Arkadin, where he's wearing his mask in the shadows. He's like, and then one thing Wells is, I mean, obviously pretty good at is like composition and framing of like making himself like seem so large and intimidating in complete darkness. It all works, but it's all framed with this white mask, and so you can't see his face, but you can see his silhouette simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, and they start having a chat, a very tense back and forth with Orson Welles versus Rob Auden.
Rob Botton?
Rob Auden.
Rob Auden?
You know, it's Auden. What are you, stupid?
Auden?
Anyway.
Well, you don't listen.
He's, Arkadin, he's had a dossier written up on old guy. A confidential report. And he's left, because he's like, let me show you my daughter's room. I left this for her to study, but she hasn't been here. He's like, that's me. This is about me. And then, of course, Guy has a little bit of a moment where he's like, how would you like it? How would you like someone to write a report about you? All the way from Bracco on down. And then there's this like zoom in on Wells's face. He's like, what? Pissed.
There's a couple big zoom ins on this one. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's several.
There's some zooms.
That's all about him, his weird facial hair.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
So he storms off. Guy goes to yell at Millie, but then Arkadin beckons him back to the castle, and he shows up, and we get a scene, RJ, where Orson Welles gets to tell the story of the scorpion and the frog, and everyone standing around these hangers-oners. You're like, are these people who've never heard this story in their life? I just feel like maybe by now it's been used so much and stuff. You're kind of like, I get it. But instead of saying, it's in my nature, it's in my character.
To sting?
Sting kind of scorpion.
Do you think he does that too? He's like, I'm a scorpion. He's like, you know how we hiss with our tails?
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, I do.
So,
I do know how you hiss.
With this perfect setup of like, how would you like someone to write a report on you? Well, it's like, I have a secret I want to tell you that I've never told anyone before. I have amnesia, and I need to find out who I was. And this is when Robert Arden goes, amnesia. Or
amnesia.
Amnesia. Yeah, Isia. Yeah.
However he says it, it's so fucking bizarre.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's because they're trying to match up the words of the dubbing, and like so there's some awkwardness there. But I'm like, why even bother? You sound like even worse. Yeah, there's some wacky pronunciation, which I'm sure our podcast is guilty of as well. But watching this with the subtitles in combination with the dub, you're kind of like, that's not how that word should be said. No,
and I mean, just in general, it seems there's a lot of weird pronunciation in this where you're like, what is going on? Why does everyone say stuff weird?
It could be regional.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. But it could also just be not.
And then Robert Arden, during this exchange, he seems to be getting drunker. I'm not sure if his character is supposed to be. Now, I know there was a bit earlier where he had to take like a triple vodka straight from a glass that he just downs in one go before he could meet Arkadin. But here it seems like it's taken off, even though it's been like hours and hours since that initial scene. And then I made a note here, weird coincidence that I watched Tenet this week.
Yes.
Because actually, some of it is, what it is to RJ is some of the cities. They're like the exact same
which makes sense.
Or countries or names are like mentioned or name checked. Yeah, very weird. Like, just like, I did not expect that.
Well, Corto Maltese, Santa Prisca, these are all classic.
Oh, of course.
Orson Welles and Chris Nolan locations.
Yeah. Well, they're big fans of
of Bane.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
you know, who isn't?
And then we get this scene where it's like Arden's like, I'm going to track down leads, but here's a scene because we don't know where else to put it, where Millie does some drunken exposition with Arkadin on his yacht, and she like kind of gives away too much information, but apparently she's repeating stuff that she heard from Arden somehow, and Arkadin's like, meows, look at me zooming in and out of me because we're getting seasick. And that's and is that I think that's the last we see of her character.
Yep.
And then we get introduced to Flea Guy.
Oh, flea market or flea circus guy?
Flea circus man, yeah, because there's all these
And he,
these old associates from Warsaw, some Polish expats that are kind of out and abroad in the world, that are connections that Robert Arden's character Guy just figures out. He's just like, ah, yeah, there's this and then this and this. It's like, well, this seems to be like no effort at all. He's like, but he's a guy. He's got connections to the underworld. And oh yeah, I guess I should say the thing that Arkadin's concerned about is, so he's an arms dealer, and he has some deals he wants to make, and like some contracts that he wants to secure, and just in case some American intelligence guys who are he's making these deals with have some, like, want to do some intelligence on this guy to see if he's shady or not. That's his claim. So I want to make sure that they can't find out about things where I could make more money. So if you could find them for me, then I know what I'd have to be worried about. Wink.
I mean, it's not a bad, like, idea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. And then we get Michael Redgrave, who's sort of this, like, eccentric fop who runs a, like, antiques store. And
what's a fop?
I don't know. He's just like, call him my dear. He's very flirtatious.
Oh, okay.
Yes. He's like.
I just need a clarification on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I know words.
There's
so many to keep track of.
We have some of the best words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some bigly best words. Yes. Anyways.
Yeah. And then we have Baroness Nagel, which gets sounded out.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, his mom or grandma. Great
Same
grandma.
spelling, actually, too.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And then so he's tracking all these people down. We get some eccentric characters. This is definitely not the Michael Redgrave performance that we saw in the Browning version.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
In terms of not as good.
Well, it's just there. I mean,
he's just alive.
He plays the role.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that the opening credits told me it was Michael Redgrave, I went, oh shit, Michael Redgrave's in this? And then I see the role, and it's like, okay. That's that. I honestly, oh yeah, Baroness Nagel, that's where he gets kind of like the lowdown on, what was it? What does he discover from her specifically?
From her?
Yeah. It's like kind of like getting the information about where Sophie is? Or is that wrong?
No, it's something like that.
Yeah, and then she's like, oh, what do I care? Because that's actually, because Guy doesn't even get to hit her. It's actually Orson? It's
he's going around.
Yeah, he's also doing, so he's like doing his own investigation concurrent.
Well, he's back. He's like shadowing him.
But he's like,
I want you to follow people.
He's barely even shadowing. Sometimes he's ahead of him.
Well, some of those, actually he is sometimes. I was just gonna say, like, I think he's just like, go try to find all these people, and then he's like, did I kill him yet? Oh no, that guy, I missed him. I'll go kill him. No.
Spoilers.
Wow.
We don't know he's killing anybody till the end. That's the twist.
This movie's 180 years old.
Yeah, that's true. So Raina and Guy cross paths along with Arkadin at this hotel room, and there's some like, well, you said you weren't going to see her anymore. It's like, well, I didn't even know that I was going to run into him. It was by total coincidence. And they're like, well, no one actually did anything wrong here. You're like, but this Arkadin guy's a bad guy. What is he even entertaining this, other than the fact that we're watching a movie? There's no logical sense whatsoever to any of the
not
story.
Really.
Not really. And then we also get a drug addict who, I can't remember his character's name, but we get him being like going through withdrawals on a boat, because Guy's such a hard man, and the guy's just like, why? So he gives up the thing. We go to the big party in Mexico.
Mexico?
Yes. There is the Sophie. We get Sophie here, who's getting married to this Mexican general or figure, and you basically find out that, like, oh yeah, no, I've seen our old friend Arkadin around, and I saw him, and I thought I was saying something, but I moved on. I forgot all about it, because the whole thing is that he one day found himself at 27 years old with like 200,000 Swiss francs in his pocket in a suit, and he couldn't remember who he was, and he wants to find out what he was doing beforehand. It turns out he was involved in some like sex ring and using women in like as like secret service officers, but then there's other girls that didn't get to do that. They got sent other places for bad things. Bad things would get done to them for money. He's a bad guy, and he doesn't want people to find out about that. His old Warsaw days.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that guy who got that lady from Smallville, and he was recruiting from the a cappella groups. It's kind of similar to that, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Everyone should watch How To with John Wilson.
I mean, yes, yeah. Why not? If you like Orson Welles, you might like that.
If you like Mr. Arkadin, yeah.
Yeah, it's all the same.
It's all there.
Well, I mean, it's connected.
Yeah. So there's a phone call, and Arkadin's there. He's just there having a party at his hotel that he owns, and they're having a big laugh. Raina sees Guy off and is like laughing at her father's amnesia, and he's like, "Well, that's stupid. Amnesia doesn't last 30 years." And that's when Guy's like, "Oh yeah, amnesia."
Amnesia. Yeah, you're right. It's not 30 years, more like 10.
I got bit. Why did I do all this?
Yeah.
And so then we head off back to Germany.
To Swiss Germany?
Chugging a triple vodka straight. And then, RJ, it turns out that Guy was set up as the fall guy.
Do you think that was ironic or intentional?
I don't know.
That the fall guy was named Guy.
It's possible.
What if his middle name was F? Like Guy F.
F Guy.
Guy. What if his name was Guy Man? F Guy Man.
That'd be pretty great.
Fall Guy Man? That's a pretty good name for something.
We get the revelation that Millie is dead. She's dead on that beach.
Yeah,
and then you find out everyone's dead. Everyone's died mysteriously. And it's like, Guy's like, I guess I might be in trouble here. But actually, he doesn't really realize that he's in trouble.
Well, he's like, ooh, this is a tight situation. He's like, I better get back to work.
Even when Arkadin's like, yes, there's one other person who's a problem. Or so there's two more people that are problems. Like, what do you mean? There's only one. Yes, you might want to think about that. Okay, I will. You're like, okay, dum-dum.
I mean, yes. Yeah, it's he's not a smart man. He hasn't been at any point in this movie.
Right. So I'm not exactly sure at this point what the whole story is here of this noir, this international intrigue. Why send this guy to do what you could easily do yourself with your spy network of people? Also it turns out that, oh yeah, if Pegleg had stabbed that guy, why did he have a gun? That doesn't make any sense. You're like, well, some guys bring guns and knives. It could be, why is this yeah, it doesn't add up. It's like, they're bad people. They can have more than one weapon.
I mean, yeah, if you were gonna go kill someone, you would definitely take more than one weapon, right?
Right. If you want to get in from like a range or close up. So anyway, Brasso and Pegleg were trying to blackmail our titular character, and Arkadin's like, "Not fuck you." Gregor goes, "I'm gonna fucking stab you."
Yeah.
Then Brasso got by him, and then Pegleg got by the Italian police. So then, of course, this is how Guy gets brought into the story, because he gets the name Whisper, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to try to blackmail you too for reasons I don't understand, because I got the name Sophie," which is like
Sophie's choice.
It's like, well, why would these guys send them off to their deaths?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right? It's like he kind of screwed them.
Yeah, but that's kind of like what he was trying to do.
I guess he's trying to screw back the guy he was trying to blackmail. I don't know. It's like, well, clearly this man will just show up and kill you. And now, then he saw an opportunity. He's like, well, I want you to track down all the other people that I could easily track down myself, so I could then blame you for them dying, even though that seems to never be like anything anyone's concerned about. Like, no one seems to care that all these people have died simultaneously, but this smuggler, like, nobody is going around killing them randomly. It doesn't hold water for me.
What makes more sense, this or Tenet?
Tenet.
Which one's easier to follow?
Tenet makes a lot more sense to me.
Okay. What was the last you were going to say?
Then I said, but then his biggest concern of all, turns out, it's about he's really concerned that all these people who knew who he was in a previous life are going to find out, or are going to result in his daughter finding out about his past. That's the only thing he's worried about. He doesn't want his daughter to know. You're like, well, she calls you an ogre. Like, of course she thinks you're like a piece of shit. Like, she doesn't like you. But now it's like,
she's pretty upfront about that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is like all the end of the flashback. So it kind of cuts back and forth to Zook, and now we get some comedy pants stuff where like suddenly you're like, okay, you got to leave this room now with me because you're the last member of the gang that's alive, and if I keep you alive, that keeps me alive, and you alive, even though you're dying of like cancer or something. And he's like, "Oh, let me go about that. Let me grab my pants first." And you're like, "What? This is some weird comedy brevity to show up in the last 25 minutes of the movie."
I think it's much like other unfinished films and unfinished screenplays of Orson Welles's, like the 1938 comedy film Too Much Johnson. I think that's what I think that entire scene is probably what this movie was trying to be. So that's a real thing. You can look it up. I didn't just make that up. So you check it out on your own time.
Johnson.
Too Much Johnson. It was unfinished. So,
So a guy hides the old man in like this woman's room that's in the same like complex. And then Arkadin shows up. Because he's just like, he's in the same town at this Christmas party. He's like, well, I'll just follow you over because you just told me the address. And then he sees him standing in front of a room. Oh, no, he's not in this room. There's this a woman. She's entertaining somebody. He's upstairs. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to believe you. And he walks in and he sits at the bed and he looks down at him and he's like, he completely recognizes him, but he lets him live. And he's like, old age. It's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, well, how do you interpret that? He's bored. He's just tired.
I don't think he wanted to kill him in front of this woman.
Yeah,
and he's like, I'll do it later. And so there is we get more hijinks with this Zuko guy where they're like, I'm going to put you up in this other hotel room so you're safe. And they're like, I want goose liver. And you're like, I guess I'll have to go find you a goose liver. Call the kitchen. Well, it's Christmas Eve. There's no goose liver to be had. It's like, sorry about that, Mac. Yeah.
I mean, who can go for foie gras that time of day? That time of day, Jarrett? Come on.
I know. You got to place your order at least a week or sooner. Give the kitchen time.
Yeah. And
so Arkadin drives up on him, and you're like, oh, yeah, don't worry. That guy's dead. And you're going to be set up for it. And that's the end of it if I just don't kill you myself. But... because he's very like, because they even follows him to a church and he's just like lurking behind him menacingly, being like, I'm going to get you. You don't know when I'm going to get you, but I'm going to get you. But he's like, well, I've got a plane ticket booked back to Spain and I'm going to go tell Donna about this. He's like, no, don't tell her. Because that's all he cares about. All these loose ends. And then, of course, I bought the last ticket on the plane. And then he's trying to pull rich man shit on him, where it's like, he's calling out the plane, I must have a ticket on there. You must stop the plane. You must not let that man on there. He works for me. Take him off there. It's like, hey, look, man. It's like, I've got shares in that plane. You have to you do what I say. He's like, hey, it's a public system. You don't own anything. And it's like, whoa.
Did you find that scene strange? Because I really did.
I
will buy a seat on that plane.
And then he shows up at the airport and then starts offering, I'll pay 50 million marks for a plane seat on there. Yes. And then he's like, Merry Christmas, Santa Claus. Oh.
But like, yeah, okay. Maybe it's just time, Maybe it's just our current day. That scene plays out a little different, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, why don't you just shoot him? Oh, I don't want to go to jail. It's like, well, I'm sure you could find a way out of it and say, like, this man did something that justified it. I don't know. This rich guy seems to be going about things poorly for this, like, criminal genius that he is. Anyway, so he gets on the plane, and Arkadin gets a private plane that he's going to fly himself because he's trying to race Guy back to Spain before he can tell his daughter what's going on. It just is. He's showing up at the airport. Rain is there. He's trying to tell him, but all these men are like, no, you have to come this way. Your father's trying to tell you something on the plane. You have to come this way right now. You don't have a single moment to explain this. He's like, nah, slow down for a second. Okay, I got a lot to tell you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the time right now saying, just tell your father that you have talked to me and tell them that you know, okay? And she's like, what? Why would I say that? Just tell them that you know. That doesn't matter. I'm taking all this time right now to explain it, but I won't tell you what it is. You're going to tell her that you know. And so there's this hilarious thing where it's like Orson Welles is yelling through this like intercom from the plane. Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Get here. Raina, where are you? Don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. And then he's just like, then she says, have you seen him? Yes. Well, don't talk to him. I already know. And then it's like in the subtitles, it's just plane engine whirring. And then the implication is Orson Welles, in his despondency that his daughter knows that that he's a piece of shit, he just jumps out of the plane to his death, and the plane just kind of floats on. It just flies in the air without a pilot.
Yeah, until it runs out of gas.
Until it eventually runs out of gas. And
That's
then
what the Modest Mouse song is about. Float on, you know?
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't get that at first, but then for a second I was like, wait a minute.
And then
did he jump out of that plane?
Yeah, he sure did. And then for all his troubles, Guy doesn't even get the girl. She goes off back with British Guy, and they leave, and that's that, Mattress Man.
I mean, that's what I liked most about it, was that the girl was like, oh, well, I don't want to be with you either. I'm going to leave now.
Thanks for all that.
Yeah, I was like, thanks for ruining my life. And he goes, no problem.
Well, she kind of loved him, though. Because remember when he's like...
Yeah.
Remember when they were like frolicking around in Spain under the...
What
about the visuals of them being in the village below the castle, which is representative of Arkadin, who's looking down upon them? They're always in the shadow of Arkadin.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. So... Yeah, and she's like, well, hey, I'll never ask you to marry me. She's like, oh, well, I guess. She's like, hey, come here. And just grabs her and just smash his face with her. And you're like, whoa, dude, slow down. I know it's 1955. I know, but
he works. You didn't know. I told you that already.
Well, he's aggressive. So anyway, so I watched this movie two times, because the first time I watched it, I was so bored out of my mind. I had no idea. I had zero investment in what was going on. I was just like, this dubbing sucks. I don't like this actor. I was zoned right out. And this, because also starting off with that Criterion cut, I was like, what is this? This is incomprehensible. And then I started watching the Corinth version, and I'm like, it's the same thing. I don't know what's going on. And I watched it through, and I was like, fuck this. This is not good. Not good at all. And then, while preparing this morning, I actually sat down and I read the synopsis for the film. And I was like, is that what's going on? It's so straightforward, really.
Yeah, but
then
so
I rewatched it. I actually watched the entire movie again. And I was like, okay. It's not utterly incomprehensible. It's just kind of stupid.
They make some wrong decisions, I think.
It's just kind of a very, I don't know. It's kind of like a weird. He's kind of hitting on things like oh, it's kind of Third Man-y, and it's kind of Citizen Kane-y with this flashback structure and trying to figure out the past of a man. And he's in this castle, and he's this a noble figure, but he's way more hands-on, and he's alive. But his motivations make zero sense. It's kind of like, what if the Rosebud was a person that he's like, oh, don't tell my sled that I'm a tycoon.
Don't tell him.
Who hurt feelings along the way and did some shady things.
Don't let him know that.
Don't let my sled know. Otherwise, I'm going to have to end myself. I'm going to have to jump off a Xanadu. I don't know. I'm just pulling this out of my butt.
I see.
I don't know. Out of my butt.
Okay.
My anus, rectum.
Damn near killed him.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, on rewatch, I got more out of it, but I think there's much to do about nothing here. This is a movie that is carried by Orson Welles' name and reputation this is lesser Welles, and
Yep.
that's about all. That's me being generous. I felt like this might be unfair to talking about this movie. It'd be very like, I would just be like, I don't even care. I don't even care, RJ. But I watched it again. I took notes. I laid it all out.
Yep.
And yeah,
Good.
Robert, the performance, like, that was some bad casting. Orson Welles, Robert Arden, terrible.
Makes sense for the Tenet talk too, hey?
It worked out magically.
See, it's all the same. It's all the same boat.
No.
I get it.
Anyway, so yeah, RJ, what did you think of this movie?
Oh, I didn't watch it.
Oh, damn. Lucky you.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty similar with you where like so like I said earlier, the only thing I knew about it was Chris Nolan was a fan of it. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe it's gonna be good. I don't know. I threw this thing on. I watched like 20 minutes of it and I was like this is pretty good. And then I watched another 20 minutes of it and I was like, I'm less into this at the moment. I watched another 20 minutes of it, and I there was a point in this too where I was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on here. Like, it's not that it's difficult to follow or anything like that. I was just kind of like, I'm not really sure what they're trying to say with this. You know what I mean? Like, what is this movie fucking about at all? Kind of thing for me. It hit at a certain point. But did you have something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was clearing my throat. But also, it's just like, I don't know, because it throws you in to the story, and they are telling you what's going on, but
they tell you what's going on the whole time.
There is something missing, like on this fundamental level.
Is the thing that's missing is why you should care? Right.
Like the protagonist is very unappealing. And like, not even like in like a fun way where you're like, oh, this guy's a dickhead, but it's kind of like fun to watch this guy be a dickhead. It's kind of like he's just unimaginatively boring. Yeah, and he's just like he's boring. He's just the character that you're stuck with. And you're like, well, I don't know if this is supposed to be the Adventures of Harry Lime or whatever. It's like Harry Lime's like a fun character. He's kind of a scamp. He's got some wit, and it's like, well, I don't want to be Harry Lime. It's like, I want to be Arkadin. You're like, well, maybe it's like this movie needed to be 2 Orson Welles,
which he could have easily done because he does so much prosthetics all the time.
That's right.
It's like in whatever.
But the problem is his voice. He's got one mode there.
Yeah, he can't.
Except when he tries to be an Irishman.
Which one is that?
Oh my God,
Ophelia?
No,
Othello.
Orson Welles Irish accent.
Is this champagne commercial?
No. Lady from Shanghai.
Oh, okay. No. Does he talk like this? Like he's from Ireland?
You'll have to watch it for yourself.
His name's Orson. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it tells you what's going on the whole time. It's not hard to follow. You're just like, at like an hour into this movie, you're kind of like, what's even fucking going on? You're like, what is this all about? Who cares?
The Flash, because usually, like, that's one of the things about Citizen Kane is when he goes to each of these interviews, these figures, you get like a flashback, you get a reward of information, so it feels like a detective story. This does not feel like that. This is just kind of like, hey, I gotta find out some information. How do you know this guy? And they're like, I don't even know who you're talking about. And then they're like, oh, you mean him? Well, here's a tidbit of information. But you're like, okay, so we're going to do this for a half hour, huh? And like nothing, like there's no like great thing. And then you're like, oh, Arkadin's right there. He doesn't disappear for a while. Which, I mean, I don't know. I think this movie might be worse if he did disappear. But when I think about, say, a movie that I do like, it's like a detective story, like, say, The Ninth Gate. It's not like Langola's there the whole time and just showing up. Like, he shows up bits and pieces, but you don't get the sense that he's just like, oh yeah, I'm doing my own interviews and let's show it. Let's show me doing it. And you're like,
sorry, yeah, finish that up.
That's it.
Okay, what other connections to The Ninth Gate can you make about this? I'm interested.
That's the one that comes off of my mind in terms of, like, it's a rich man who's a bad dude. Sends a guy to do
something.
You need to find the other copies, and then I'm going to kill them. after you found them.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I just wanted to see if
but
you could
Langola's like
connect
not
that
like,
down.
hey, we're on my yacht with your girlfriend that I off camera kill. That you could, but you don't care. You're kind of like, oh, Millie stopped being around. Well, she's on do other things. But neither does Guy.
Be like making a movie about an animal and having the animal as the title of the movie, and then you build it up and then they go away before the end of the movie. Do you know what I mean, Jarrett?
I don't know.
And you feel cheated by it?
I'm not
Do
sure.
you,
No idea.
do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't.
No? Oh, okay. Maybe that's for someone else.
No clue.
Yeah, it's just well, you know what happens. But anyways, yeah, I watched this, and when I finished, I kind of went okay. Like I was just, I think I was all right. Like it was a thing I watched. Is it outright bad? There's some bad stuff in it. It's not a bad movie. There's some bad stuff in it for sure. Some of the acting, some of the plot line stuff, putting it together.
That sounds pretty bad. I mean, for this,
for what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what you said. The only things about it is it's Orson Welles. There's a little bit of the touches that he adds into these things, but that's about it. Other than that, I was pretty much kind of like, I don't give a fuck about Mr. Arkadin. And I'm not going to say it Arkadin because I think that is horse shit. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
They pronounce words bad. So this movie was just, it was fine. I went, okay. That's it. I just went, okay. That's it.
That's that.
I just went, okay. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Mattress Man. That's it.
The mantra.
I mean, that is someone's mantra.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, this Arkadin film, not one of my films.
No.
It's a movie that exists.
Yeah, it's some sub-film noir action, that's for sure.
Well, let's hear about who hates this film.
What a great idea. Because RJ wants to go to bed.
Well, I mean, it's 10:30, Jarrett.
Wow. Somewhere it's not.
It's 10:30 in Lithuania.
Oh, damn. In the morning, though. They're just getting started.
I mean, actually, do you have anything else to say?
No, we can go right
okay.
to that. We can do it.
Okay.
I just actually pulled it up. Let's go with, oh boy, it's a long one. Let's do it. Jason Nolasco.
I gotcha.
Half a star. Ooh. Visually impressive. Agreed. But yeah. I sometimes think it is over-edited for style points, which left me somewhat numb. That isn't something that should stop me from watching the movie, but the acting or characterizations of some of the characters are just way too unbearable. I don't understand why the main guy constantly tries to be a hotshot wannabe, and he's always trying to talk tough or putting on something in every damn scene. It felt ridiculous, and it didn't help that a few of them share some of his persona style. I try to pay attention and go along with the movie, but the amateur acting just killed any momentum. I know the critic Jonathan Rosenbaum defends it as intentional, but oh man, the guy can't even add nuance or something charismatic to his unlikable persona. So, apparently maybe Jonathan Rosenbaum says, Robert Arden's in complete control of his performance. It's like, yes, but it still sucks.
Being in control of something doesn't mean it's better.
Even if it's bad, it's fucking bad.
If it's bad, it's bad. That's
or at least if I think it's bad, it's still bad. I don't care if anyone's it's intentionally bad. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, I agree. This one's a bit of a different duck, Jarrett.
Well, but we also kind of agree with this one.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll get to their favorite films in a second. I just don't want to forget these 2 5-star films that I've noticed, but they're 5-star and half-star films are a lot of criterions, but 5 stars to things like Fast 5, The Fast and the Furious 5, and Black Panther, they give 5 stars to as well.
Okay.
Favorite films include Blow Up, Memento, Red Desert, and Network. And then here's some half-star films for you, Jarrett. Half-star.
Yep.
Previously mentioned on this show, The Suicide Squad,
mm-hmm.
Cannibal Holocaust,
mm-hmm.
Brazil, Roman Polanski's The Tenant, High and Low. You know about High and Low, Jarrett?
That's a half-star movie, I hear.
And what about Eraserhead? Is that also a half-star film?
It might not float everyone's boat.
They also gave Magnificent Ambersons a half a star. So I think this person just doesn't like Orson Welles is the thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I don't know. There's other like criterions in here, but strange taste. Strange taste. They watched 4 different versions of Atlas Shrugged, and they gave all of them half a star. So at what point would this person just stop watching Atlas Shrugged? Do you know what I mean?
It's madness.
You know what I mean? Just stop watching it if you don't like it. Maybe.
How about Erhard K?
I see him.
Half star. It tries to be profound, especially in Arkadin's catchphrases, but turns out to be embarrassed. 2 or 3 sentences are good, but the script is so intricate and reaches nowhere at the end. Of a silly mystery, like, what was my past? Spending almost 20 minutes of climax in search of a liver goose to feed the last witness of Arkadin's past. Terrible. This person, I think, might have English as a second language, or some auto translate there. So we'll not hold that
Brazil.
against Erhard. Yeah, we won't hold that against the strangeness of it. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm like, I don't disagree with these people who hate it. I don't know if I mean, I did hate this movie maybe a little bit. I kind of was like really annoyed, at it and having to watch it. But on rewatch, I was like, okay. But there's just like some fatal flaws, I feel, to the actual content outside of like, well, I think Orson would have edited his way out of this. It's like, no.
I know what you mean. This person also 5-starred Network, which is like interesting.
Well, Network is indeed a 5-star movie. Right?
Yes, it is. It is. Other favorite films include Cinema Paradiso, Auto Compasida. Not a lot of half-star films. Half-star films include Mr. Arkadin, Hubie Halloween, which is a movie Jarrett's going to watch next year, Glass, or as Jarrett titled it, Ass, and Hereditary and Midsommar. So not bad. I see what they're doing.
I got 2 more that I just
okay.
Gonna make me chuckle. Sigmund Lamar, 1 star. Yeah. Wells loves to point his camera up at himself from an extremely low angle. He might as well shut up his own butt.
His own butt?
He might as well.
His own butt.
Yeah, because he likes to shoot up from a low angle.
For his own butt?
He might as well shut up his own butt. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Almost nothing works in this mess of a movie. Least of all, Wells' misapprehension that he would carry his scenes mumbling with a vague impression of menace and mystery. He apparently spent all his budget on travel and location and forgot to save any for sound.
I mean, that too, potentially.
Oh,
yes.
Man. I don't know why that one made me laugh so much, but...
I mean, that's fine.
It's good.
Do what you like, man.
Could save some money for sound. I don't know. He's not that incoherent.
No.
But
he's just Orson Welles.
Mumbling.
Is that the whole review?
That's it.
Okay. Sigmund Lamar is co-host of the podcast You Watched It Wrong. So if you want to listen to more of Sigmund Lamar, listen to this podcast instead, because we don't need competition. Favorite films: Sling Blade, Mad Max Fury Road, Punch Drunk Love, and Raising Arizona. Half-star films include Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is a good film, Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is a good film, and Big Babe, Pig in the City, which is another good film. So
4.5 stars for Nomadland.
I see that.
No.
So maybe don't get on board with Sigmund Lamar.
Don't.
Just listen to our podcast instead.
Some pretty good ones. Like Orson Welles was a good director.
Oh God. That's from Henry Wolf.
Yeah, Sick Burns. Then there's Auteur, who I believe has been on the air before. Mm-hmm. An immediate frontrunner candidate for any list of horrible films by great directors. The divide between unmitigated visual pretension and banality of story is perhaps the greatest I have ever seen. I cannot understand even appreciating this in parts. No doubt indicative of the fallout from peaking early. Ooh. Mercifully unreleased in a definitive director's cut, which I would be surprised did not relate to Wells's embarrassment over what he created.
I mean, maybe. It could be that.
No.
Yeah, this person's been on before. Favorite films currently: Breaking the Waves, Blue Velvet, The Cook, Thief, The Cook, the Thief, The Wife, and the Lover, and Citizen Kane.
Not bad. A lot of people saying I did not finish this.
It's not hard to finish. Just sit there. Just look at your fucking phone.
Bizarre accents, poorly matched audio mix. Visually stunning. But Orson's ostentatious camera work is only in service of an overly exoticized and nonsensical noir plot that doesn't register as extant for an hour and then fails to resolve. Maybe there's a cut of this that works, but Bogdanovich can probably find a better project. Man, people are just dumping. I like it. I like this. People are way meaner to this movie than I was, because I was prepared.
Yes, sir.
Man, that rewatch might have saved it a little bit for me.
The rewatch saved it for you?
Well, probably. It was down there, my man. It was down there.
I follow you. I follow you.
Yeah. It joins the club of movies. I'm like, I feel like I need to rewatch this, otherwise I'm not going to be very good on this show.
I know what you mean.
But then there's a summer where you're just like, I'm done.
Well, we're not going to watch this stuff like 19,000 times.
We could. That would be a bad decision. Bad call, but...
No, we're not.
No. Oh.
Going to do that.
But we could.
Yeah, we could. We could do a lot of things.
We do a lot of things. Many things.
A lot of things. We're not going to.
There's a lot of Enterprise to be watched.
Ooh. Well, only if you're watching it too.
No.
Come on.
I still have to finish watching Babylon 5.
You haven't finished that?
No, I've got I just stopped. I haven't watched it in 6 months.
Dude, just go finish it. You watch 9 movies a week. What did it take you to finish? One night of Babylon 5?
Probably 2 nights, but it's low priority. There's actually a bunch of movies I have to watch of it too, though, which are
there's nothing you have to watch.
Well, there's things I'd prefer to watch. Otherwise, I would be done it. Anyways, hey RJ, any final thoughts on Mr. Arkadin?
Mr. Arkadin, more like Mr. Shitadin. Got him.
After the break.
Yeah.
RJ just jumps right out of that airplane.
Fuck. That'd be pretty fun, though, eh?
And I'll have a camera pointed right up his ass.
It should be the review for all the movies. Potentially.
Potentially. Get that camera out of there.
That sounded like, you ever seen Showtime with Robert De Niro? Where he's like, get that camera out of there. It sounded just like that movie, Jarrett.
There you go.
Good stuff.